So, what I've been talking about lately in this work is that I believe we have what I sometimes call our original self. And that's the part of us that, well, when we came into this life, we came in not yet speaking any language verbally. And I believe that we were born in what I would often call a perfectly imperfect way. And when I say perfectly imperfect, I mean like some people will be short, some people will be tall, some people will be heavy, some people will be thin. Nothing wrong with any of that. Each person is unique. And supposedly every snowflake that's ever fallen has a different shape, a different pattern. So we're all unique. And we come into this life with the capacity to not only survive, but thrive. And we have curiosity. And we have the desire to make something interesting, good, emotionally fulfilling from our life. And then along the way, we have many things happen. Some of us grow up in a difficult setting or whatever goes on, and we seem to, for the most part, lose this sense of being a perfectly imperfect person, a person that's capable of doing everything that we really want. And so I think it's important to note that none of us have any true idea of what I call objective reality. So objective reality has nothing to do with the culture you come from or the beliefs you have. Objective reality starts out with things like it's raining today. And if I say that, then hopefully it is indeed raining. Or the sun is shining and it's hot, it's warm. Like lately in Chiang Rai where I'm living, it's been 38 degrees during the daytime, which is about 101 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's objective reality, but we rarely interact with life according to objective reality because quickly we have all of these, I call them filters that we put on. And we notice, like when I look at a Thai person, I see not just a person. Oh, look, there is a person. I might actually look and say, oh, is that a Thai person or a foreign person? And then whenever I'm looking, I always have some kind of, when I say opinion, doesn't have to be negative or positive, but, oh, there's a pretty lady. Or, wow, that guy is really heavy. And all of that information that we add is our subjective reality. And so we add all of this information to objective reality, and sometimes we come away with a pleasing experience, and sometimes we don't. So I think it's important to note that 100%, in my model of the world, 100% of what we're experiencing is what we've created inside our head and inside our whole body. And we're noticing and acting in the world from this place. And when I say acting in the world, we're experiencing ourselves from this place. Whether I think I'm a good person or a foolish person or whatever kind of person. It's not objective reality, it's the beliefs about myself that I've constructed along the way. So I believe that each one of us is the source for our experience, and that we can, as the source, we have all of the capacity that we need to create the world that we truly desire. Now, is that a simple task? Hasn't been for me. I don't think it is for most people. But that's what we're doing. We are the source of our experience. And I think it's really important to note that, is that because often we might go along in life thinking, oh, life is really challenging me. Why did my car break down on my way to my job interview or whatever happened? But we are the source of everything that happens. And the more we tap into that source, which I believe normally requires taking a deep breath and just expanding our awareness, our consciousness out to see whatever it is we're seeing, to feel the sensations of whatever it is we're feeling, and to hear whatever it is that we're hearing. And when I say sensations, I mean physical sensations, like my head's a little itchy, or boy, I'm sweating a little bit, or something like that. I don't mean the sensation of feeling happy, sad, angry, positive. That's the subjective reality that we're making up inside of ourselves. So the more we can just notice what is, and the more we can take down the filters of, I'm an American, so therefore I believe this. And of course, again, we don't normally recognize that we're doing this. And that's one of the reasons why I think it can be really interesting to travel to what we call foreign countries. They're foreign to us because we've never been there, and or we never lived there, or our parents didn't grow up in that culture. And we see people doing things sometimes that are really surprising. So the last time I was in Morocco with my daughter and her mom, we were traveling in a car with a driver we've been traveling with for several days, very nice guy. And we went through a toll booth on a highway, and there was a Moroccan woman, I don't know, maybe 35, 40 years old, dressed in rather traditional clothing, that was out hitchhiking. And I was totally shocked by that. And I said to the driver, oh my goodness, that woman's out there hitchhiking on her own. And he said, okay, so what's the big deal? We're not animals in this country. And I said, no, just, I can't imagine a woman these days hitchhiking in America by herself, or in most countries, Japan, where I lived for many years. It just doesn't happen. So I was rather surprised. And that surprise came from what I had in here, what I had accumulated through the years, and what I was believing. So when we're looking to live a more fulfilling life, I think it's important to be able to take away some of the filters that we have in place, and to see the life, to see the world or our life from what in Japanese thinking we could call beginner's mind. So we all take a deep breath now, and we can just sit here. I'm slowing down. That's an invitation for you to slow down. And chances are, if you're on this call, if you kind of look around a little bit or feel a little bit into yourself, chances are you can say, you know what? Everything's okay right now. And regardless of what you might need to be doing after the call is over, right now, in this moment, which is truly the only time there really is, we can experience ourself in life as being okay, or even as being fantastic or wonderful. Again, I might have so many different problems or things to do after this call is over. But let me just rest here now. In this moment, everything's fine. So these are some of my beginning beliefs. I believe we all have the capacity to create the life we truly desire. And part of what I'm here to do with people is to help them realize that, and also to help them actualize that. So I'd love to do a piece of coaching with someone today. And when we do coaching in Seishindo, we hope that it leads to a feeling of deeper appreciation of the self and some sense of celebration for life. So no matter how stuck we might feel in the moment, we can have at least a small experience of, whew, everything's okay, I'm okay. Right in this moment, life is perfect as it is. So Amita came to her first webinar, the last webinar we had, and she felt like it was a good experience. She wrote to me and said that. So what would you like to talk about or work on today, Amita?
Well, that's a really difficult question.
Can I put your video on, Amita?
Yeah, I have it down. Okay.
Okay. So Amita says that's a very difficult question, and Charlie asks, why is it a difficult question?
Well, because I'm not sure. There are so many things I would want to work upon, but not sure given this format or webinar, what would be possible.
Well, I think first of all, the webinars, we do wind up putting them on YouTube. And also good for you to know that when we're working here, I don't ask for much in the way of personal information. So for instance, someone could say, I'm having difficulty with someone in my life. I don't need to know usually whether that's your husband, your best friend, your boss, or whatever. So you don't need to share all of the personal details of your life. But we can work on anything that concerns you.
Okay, so I'm just going to be a little bit extemporaneous here and say one of the patterns I've seen in myself is I get triggered when somebody like totally dismisses what I'm saying, especially with the remark like, oh, you need to think, oh, you sound confused, maybe you need to read this again. And I'm like such an analytical, intellectual person that I would have thought it 100 times more than most people would. So it could be an honest mistake, but the lapse is not that I haven't thought about it conscientiously.
Okay. So here's the first piece of information, and then I'll give you more. When you're talking, you're going up like this and looking, which is fine. But if you're not feeling quite sure about what you're doing, then I'm saying going up like this is most likely not serving you, because we all have our memories stored in different places in our consciousness, and up tends to be visual, down tends to be feeling. To the left and right is more of us remembering the auditory part of our memory. So first piece of information, regardless of what exactly the situation is, that do your best to just kind of look into the camera or at me.
Okay.
And I think you'll start to feel a tiny bit different. So
okay.
You say that, was it an honest mistake or was it a dishonest mistake? So someone has a different opinion, a different experience of the world than you do, yes?
Well, I can clarify it by saying that I wouldn't mind if somebody differs, but when they kind of put it back to me or retort back saying, oh, you need to think about this, or you need to read more, or it looks like you're confused. Well, that's not it. I could be wrong, and I don't mind somebody saying, no, I don't agree with you, or you are wrong. But kind of like disregarding the conscientious effort I've put into it, and I'm pretty focused about what I'm saying. That really triggers me. It wouldn't trigger me if somebody said, you're not a nice person. I'm like, okay, this is not about nice. This is about getting something done in the right way.
Okay. So you have someone who comes from a completely different life than you do. And they have a rather different experience of the world than you do, right?
It could be, yes.
Well, I think it's almost a given, no?
Okay, I can agree about that, yes.
I mean, just asking, did you perhaps grow up in India?
Yeah, I did, yes.
Going to be a little different experience of the world than growing up in America, huh?
Oh, very different, very, very
Yes.
much so.
Okay. So when we go into a meeting or anyway we get involved in a conversation, then one of the first things we can know is the person I'm talking to is going to have a different model of the world than me. Yeah?
Okay.
And actually, what I find is that a friend of mine says it's the difference that makes the difference. The difference between people is what makes the world so interesting and often what gets the world working better. So if we had a situation where every time I can't imagine if most every time I said anything, everyone agreed, boy, I'd start to get a little worried about what the heck was going on. Because realizing that even, for instance, with science, where the scientist runs quite detailed experiments with all different checks and balances into place, trying to make sure that they don't put their own thinking into the experiment. It turns out that most scientific experiments over the course of time have been proven somehow incorrect. Sometimes completely incorrect, or at very least, the deductions that came out need to be changed. So that when we're talking to people, it's basically an impersonal relationship we're having, yes? So that if someone somehow judges you as being incorrect or whatever term they might use, what draws you to get upset about that?
That the thing I'm saying, I'm putting forth, expressing, it matters to me. I have done my homework or my conscientious due diligence, and then I'm expressing it. And I'm not a person who just expresses things spontaneously, extemporaneously, because I feel like it. It's like, if I haven't tested it, thought through it like a million times, I won't say it. I've become better about that.
Yeah.
But And then when a person just dismisses it, like, oh, that's like BS, or that's what kind of they are saying. It's the dismissal.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind if they said, oh yeah, you've done a lot of thinking, but it's wrong. That would be acceptable. At least they are validating my thinking
Yes.
or the effort I put into it. It's the dismissal that triggers me.
Yeah, so maybe this is what I'm hearing, but I might be incorrect, so please feel free to correct me. Partially, I hear you saying that you want to be validated by the other person.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And I can tell you again from my own experience, sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But let me just ask you, Amita, who's upsetting you?
Oh, you mean like which particular person?
Well, my model of the world says there's only one particular person that can upset you.
You mean like in the sense of I'm upsetting myself, I'm
Yeah.
allowing myself? Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. So, you know, I lived for 30 years in Japan, and the name for a foreigner is gaijin, and basically that means outside person.
Uh-huh.
And so what happens is if you move to Japan and you have a job, you'll need a job if you're going to live there, of course.
Right.
There are some things that you can accomplish that the average Japanese can't because you're an outside person. And then there's all sorts of things that happen where you're kind of very definitely kept outside and you have no choice but to remain an outside person. And I can see that here somewhat in Thailand. I don't believe as strongly as in Japan. So for me personally, I don't want to give other people the power over my emotional state. Because if I give other people the power over my emotional state, I wind up feeling like not really in control of my life. So, yes, there are going to be people that don't really agree with you or understand you. Seems like that's the way life often happens, no?
Yeah.
So, I think, you know, certainly we can see this in regard to talking about politics. And you know, for instance, certainly in the United States, there seems to be lately a lot of division.
Yeah.
So people either very much like Donald Trump or very much dislike him. But I think one thing that's very clear to me is one person is never going to convince the other person of their opinion. Yeah, so if you start out saying you don't like Donald Trump and I start out saying I do, I think we're best to leave that conversation for another day because no matter what you tell me, you're not going to convince me of your opinion.
Right.
Okay? So sometimes what we're talking about, let's say in whatever situation you're referring to, it could be work or whatever, it has a lot of importance to the person. And their opinion is different than yours. What if you just took a deep breath and said, okay, what would happen, Amita?
Well, one thing I can say is I won't get as much upset. at least a little less upset.
Oh, good. So we went from fairly big upset to a little upset. That's already some progress, I think. So go ahead. You wouldn't get as upset.
Yeah, what I would still be worried about is, what I'm saying is something critical, right? Like, and then it will get overlooked, and then it will lead to a bigger problem eventually. Maybe I'm being a little bit neurotic about it, or neurotic is not the word, maybe apprehensive.
Yes.
But it's been to my experience that in many cases, because I've done my due diligence, it happens that, well, you dismiss it now and then tomorrow it becomes a mess.
Yes. Okay, good. So that's, I think we've already, for me anyway, I've accomplished a little bit of learning here. One of the main points that leads you to get upset is you're concerned that if the other person doesn't listen to you, the problem's either going to happen again tomorrow or actually even get bigger tomorrow.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Okay. So when the person doesn't seem to understand you or agree with you in the beginning, and I don't say these are easy choices, but we have the choice of kind of getting upset. And when you do get upset, how does that tend to make the rest of the conversation go?
Oh, very, I mean, it depends. If I react, it could go in a very negative sense. Or if I hold back, then it could be like, well, apparently it went okay, but within me, I'm like seething with anger and
Yes.
resentment and how to get back. And
Yes. Yeah. So in long form or short form, when you get upset, it tends to not have a good result for you and or the other person and or the situation you're talking about. Correct?
correct.
Okay. So again, might not be easy, but what if when the other person dismisses you or seems to completely disagree with you, what if you thought, what's another way I can say this? How can I get this person to understand me better? What would happen then if that was your thought?
Yeah, if that was my thought, I would definitely come up with something. There are two things that block that, though, I feel. I don't know if I should bring that up.
One second. Good, you're doing great. So first of all, you're still looking up a lot. And since you're a little confused at the moment, the looking up isn't helping you. But I realize it's a habit. So
Yeah.
not easy necessarily to stop, but you're kind of up here, talking and thinking. So
Yes, I always do that. That's
yeah.
why last time when you said about the eye movement, I found it like very helpful, but I don't know how to really apply it to myself.
Well, one of the ways you can apply it to yourself, for instance, is looking in a mirror and practicing a conversation you're going to have with someone. And,
Okay.
like I'm looking at you now and I don't even necessarily need a mirror. All I know is once I'm up here, I can't see anything except the top of the wall and the ceiling.
Uh-huh.
So once I realize I'm not able to see either myself in the mirror or in this case, you,
Uh-huh.
and once I'm up here, I don't get really helpful information, then I just got to go whoosh and come back again.
Okay.
So that's a task of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
So you said something to the effect of, if I reacted with the idea of how could I help this person to understand me better? And
Mm-hmm.
in the process, you might actually change what you're saying a little bit. That's also important.
Yeah.
How would that be different than getting upset?
Okay, so what comes, these are instances which reach me as the other person has shut down. So in that sense, what happens internally is I feel the emotional intensity is going to help break through that resistance.
You feel that the emotional intensity is going to do what, please?
It's going to break their resistance. Like they cannot no longer say, oh, I don't get it. Oh, you are going to get it because I'm going to make you so upset that you cannot now ignore what I'm saying. You know, something to that effect. I cannot.
Okay, so Barbara, these in the world of NLP, and we all do this, what you're doing now is called mind reading. And most of us aren't actually all that good at doing mind reading. Like if you ask me, if you say now, I'm thinking of a particular 3-digit number, please tell me what that number is. I think the chances of me getting the correct answer are very, very slim.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so 1 out of 999 chances are I don't get it right. So if you're sitting here going around in your head thinking, well, if I say this, then she's going to get upset. And meanwhile, the other person, by the way, is sitting there, then what you're going to wind up producing, I think, is whatever you thought. If you think the person's already checked out, they're too stubborn, then I think that's the kind of response you're going to get from the person, and that can be called a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay.
So something that, like I said a few minutes ago, this is what I think I heard you say, but please correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving the people the opportunity to correct me. When they do correct me, I don't at all think like, who is this person to correct me? I'm the coach or something like that. I find that in being able to work well with someone else, particularly in the beginning, there's a necessity for a whole lot of corrections until we both begin to understand more about how the other person thinks. So it's impersonal. If a Japanese person thinks, oh, he's an outside person and he's saying X, boom, 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 boom. Okay. I take a deep breath. And for instance, sometimes when I was in Japan, I would say, you know, as a gaijin, as an outside person, as a gaijin, I'm sure that what I'm going to say is a little bit different than what you've been thinking. But let's please find a way to work together. And then I make my statement. So that having suggested to the person that what I'm going to say most likely is not going to land well in the beginning, what I have found is having made that statement, when I say what I'm saying, somehow the other person is more accepting.
Okay.
But certainly who I am, who I really am, doesn't change depending on whether the person agrees with me or not. So if you ask yourself at the beginning of a conversation, what's my intention here with the idea that you're thinking of now, what would you say your intention is in having this conversation with the other person?
To get things done.
To get things done in a good way, right?
Yeah, in a constructive way to resolve whatever situation, problems are there.
Right, good. And then I believe your job is what do I need to do to help that to happen? And what you're already finding, I think, is simply giving you a well thought out idea is not enough to get the results that you want.
Yes, correct.
So it's almost like, yeah, it's like doing the first part of a task and wondering why you don't get the results you wanted is because you didn't do the second part of the task.
Okay.
So this person might not be, number one, they might simply not be understanding you, or they might not be still part of not understanding you, not understanding how you, what was your thought process? How did you come up with the idea that you came up with? Because it's somehow very different than theirs.
Yes, yes, that happens a lot.
Yes. So what most likely happens, Amita, is you're feeling not accepted. And when the other person says, no, I just dismissed that, how do you think they're feeling?
Maybe exasperated?
Exasperated?
Yeah.
Yes. And my experience is, if I was, for instance, thinking that you're exasperated right now, what I don't do is try to go in here and think, now why is she exasperated? I lose my connection with you, and I'm mind reading. So chances are I don't fully understand why you're exasperated. But what I can do is speak more slowly. Also, make it clear to the other person that, I'm saying my thought or opinion right now, but I'm also very, very much wanting to hear your thoughts and opinions on this matter. Have you ever said that to the person?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And to me, that's really crucial. And like one thing that I find is whenever someone critiques me in what feels to me like a harsh manner, I mean, as long as they don't say something outrageous like you just stole $50 out of my purse or something, I'm not talking about that, but someone says I'm stupid, someone says ba 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 ba,
Right.
I always agree with them. I say, well, you know what? You're right. Sometimes I am stupid. That leaves them literally speechless because they were never expecting that I would actually agree with them. And when I agree with them and say, well, okay, maybe I am being stupid right now. What do you think would be the best path forward? You can see they're like, oh my God, the world has completely changed. They weren't expecting agreement.
Okay.
So that whatever I say to you, Amita, whether it's something that seems complimentary or whether it's something that seems judgmental, I think the first important thing for you to know is I don't really know you at all. And, like I play music, I play harmonica. I call myself a semi-professional. I'm pretty good at it, but I don't have all of the skills of a full professional. And then usually I get quite a good response from the audience. And then when it's over, let's say the band is even shutting down for the night and someone comes up and says, oh my God, you were so fantastic. If that happens occasionally. I just go, well, thank you.
Mhm.
Just like that. I don't think, oh, here's someone that really understands how fantastic I am. I just take it in and say, well, thank you. Take a deep breath, finish putting my harmonicas away, close up the bag, smile at them maybe again, nod, and get up and get off the stage because I'm no longer performing. So I say one of the ways we can best prepare for meetings, particularly if we think they're going to be challenging,
Mhm.
you start out by asking yourself, am I appreciating person X? And if you find yourself going, blah, 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 then you know you need to find a way to appreciate them before the meeting starts. Because otherwise they're going to feel that you're not fully appreciating them. Okay, so what, if anything, are you learning so far?
Well, the first thing is about eye movements.
Yes.
And I'm going to practice it. So thank you for suggesting that and actually showing me pinpointing it out specifically. More so, yeah, just slowing down. And like you said, the other person comes from a different perspective. How am I going into the situation beforehand? Because I usually focus more on the idea, the work, the activity than the person. That's what I know to do best. And what helps me also is a stumbling block in a way.
Yes. Well, in this work, we say there's always task, the thing we have to get done, and relationship, the people we need to interact with to get the task done.
Right.
And that having the proper relationship, having a good relationship with the other person always makes the task easier to accomplish. So I usually give my first attention to doing my best to create a good atmosphere, a good relationship with the person I'm talking to. Because without that good relationship, okay, they might say okay, but they're upset, with the proper relationship, everyone really starts moving forward.
Okay.
So whenever I'm not feeling respected or liked, something that I've discovered over time is that when I stop and think about it, I haven't been respecting and liking the other person to begin with.
That's true.
Maybe I feel superior. Maybe okay, I studied a lot of Aikido. I believe that I was one of the top Aikido people in Japan for a number of years, my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I meet someone, let's say from the States. They haven't studied 1/10 as much as I have.
Mm-hmm.
And they just quickly give me some opinion about a certain technique or the way to go about doing Aikido, and I find myself not agreeing.
Uh-huh.
It's really crucial for me to take a deep breath and realize, okay, here's a different opinion. That's quite fine. Mm-hmm. And when I'm able to do that, sometimes I just think okay, I don't think this is something I can easily. First of all, the person hasn't necessarily asked me to teach them. Second of all, I don't think I can easily convey the different opinion that I have. So I just wind up saying, okay, fair enough. And then that part of the conversation is over.
Mm.
So that, particularly if it's work related,
Mm-hmm.
I want to feel important. I want to feel like I know what's going on, even though sometimes I don't. Because when we're talking work, for instance, oh my God, if I lose this job, you know, I've got a mortgage payment. So in order to help people to be more open to accepting your idea, I think you have to be more open to accepting their ideas. And then once you're both open, I think that creates the possibility of giving further opinions and perhaps coming to a decision that isn't what either one of you was exactly thinking starting out.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would agree about that. It would be hard to do, but I would definitely like to move towards doing that.
Okay, so why don't you do that then?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you feel like you've accomplished something today?
Yeah, I would definitely say so.
Okay, and what do you feel like you accomplished?
Uh, Trying to like uh,
You're
be
looking up.
important. Yeah, I know. I realize that, and I know I still will do it, but at least I'm catching myself doing that. But thank you. Uh, Giving the other person the space to open up instead of like, okay, I've done my homework. If we just run with this, you know, it would be the most efficient way. And unfortunately, yeah, like I've talked, respecting the other person in the sense of just listening to them where they are coming from. And it's not, in my world, that's not the most efficient way, but that seems to be what I need to do.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, I often say that, you know, relationships don't happen in a straight line kind of way.
Yeah.
So what might be the most efficient to you in your mind isn't taking into account the way the other person feels and thinks.
Exactly. And that's what I need to become cognizant of. One thing I really found striking was when you talked about, what did you say? The word mind reading?
Mind reading, yes.
Mind reading. Yeah, that's interesting because I thought that was like a good thing to do, like actually process things in my mind. But it seemed like what from your saying, it's not at all helpful. It's actually taking you away from being present.
Well, what I attempt to do when I'm talking to someone is just notice. Like, let's say I'm out in nature and I'm sitting somewhere like under a tree, and I just take a deep breath and take in the nature.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say to myself, oh, look, that leaf over there is going like this and the wind is like this. And I don't have internal dialogue about the nature. So what I'm saying is, if I'm conversing with you, I'm doing my best to notice everything that's going on. And for instance, this context, since I'm a coach and you asked for some coaching, I mentioned about your eye movements.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, I'm not going to do that in a business meeting with someone.
Yeah.
because they haven't asked me to coach them. So I'm doing my best to notice and appreciate the other person. What I'm saying is, in mind reading, the moment I'm saying, oh, Amita seems upset now. Oh, Amita's smiling. I think she's happier now. Oh, Amita, that usually, so often we're wrong in some important extent that we're better off not doing that.
So what would you suggest when I catch myself doing that? Like, okay, now I'm thinking, okay, oh, you get it probably. I don't need to elaborate.
You take a deep breath and you realize, chances are I don't fully understand what the other person is thinking and feeling. And then one of the things you can do as you're opening the space by appreciating and accepting them, you can say, for instance, so anyway, maybe not completely the best idea, but I just gave you my idea.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear, number one, your feedback on my idea, and number two, what your idea is.
Okay.
Now you don't need the mind read.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
So chances are you're going to do a little better at this, or if not a lot better in the future. Yeah?
Yes, I think I will. Especially the eye movement itself is going to be a huge help because I've been doing that a lot.
Yes, that's okay. I mean, if you ask me, oh, Charlie, tell me about the last vacation you had, and I go up here and I have all these great memories, it's not that going up is bad, is that what you want to do is, number one, keep a light focus on the other person. Doesn't mean like staring at them the whole time, of course. And then what's important is that if I'm going up and I find that I'm not getting the results I want, then I realize I should just stay down and centered. So just to make it clear, it's not, if you're thinking about your favorite vacation or your favorite TV program, whatever, and you go up and you can see the scenes, that's great. It's just that when you're not getting the results that you want and you find you're up there, then you know it's time to come back down again.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for actually clarifying that. I think time is up. So,
okay. So good. There's another webinar today.
mm-hmm.
Thank you for having the courage and openness to be coached.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate this because
okay. Great. And hopefully we'll see you again next time.
Yes, I will try my best if I can make it.
Okay. So thanks to everyone, and this is the ending for today. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye now. Have a good day or a good night.
Bye-bye.
Okay.